I am pleased to be joining you all today to serve as MC for the remainder of this roundtable. I am Sean McCrory, Editor-in-Chief of the Houston Business Journal, and I'm looking forward to learning more from the speakers and each of you here as we continue to explore the topic of brain capital and the brain economy in Houston and beyond. The conversations taking place today are important in driving the innovations that are very critical to our readers who are the business leaders of Greater Houston. You can expect to see coverage informed by the conversations taking place today immediately following the event, but also in the months following that. That is something we're going to stay on top of at the Houston Business Journal. We certainly welcome your input on that as we continue to cover it. The next group of speakers will be exploring the powerful combination of neuroscience and AI to drive transformative innovation from education to the highest levels of business. Oftentimes at convenings, we talk much about the problem and the need and not enough about the solution. This group, led by Blue Ash Ventures, rolled up their sleeves and set out to solve the problem. We are going to shift a bit from bold ideas to practical implementation. We will hear about a pioneering new approach to measuring the social, emotional, and cognitive skills that drive human performance across the lifespan. Rooted in neuroscience and designed for real-world application from classrooms to boardrooms, this signals powerful turning point. Brain capital is no longer theoretical. It's actionable, measurable, and ready to shape how we invest in people and performance at a scale. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Steve Carnevale, founding partner, Blue Ash Ventures, who will serve as our moderator for this panel. Dr. Joshua Arnold, co-founder and co-CEO for Impactor Pathway. Marie Gill, CEO and co-founder of Atheon. Ali Khan, CEO for Shape Global. I think that's off my... Yep. Dr. Besh Saab, CEO and Chief Scientist for Mobio Interactive. Dr. Meg Small, Director of Social Innovation for Edna Bennett Pierce Prevention Research Center at Pennsylvania State University. And Eric Zimmerman, MPH MBA, Chief Marketing and Marketing Solutions Officer for Credible Mind.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, wow, even I got excited by that description. I hope we talk about some of that stuff. This is always a hard slot after lunch, but I'm happy to see most people are here. This, for me, is it's a kind of a historic or maybe even a memorable moment for a couple of reasons. One is I've been involved pretty much since the beginning of the brain capital movement. I met Harris Ayer 5-6 years ago at UCSF at the GBHI, the Global Brain Health Institute. And we became fast friends when I saw it when it was just an idea in his head, and he's brought it to life in this amazing way. So thank you, Harris, for that. It's been awesome. And I remember sitting at the last UN Science Summit with Kelly O'Brien, in which she was just starting to give birth to this idea. So this amazing space and everything we do here, we owe to her and her hard work. So thank you, Kelly, wherever you are. Hopefully you're here. There you are, there. Yeah. Got your flip-flops and everything now. That's good. So I've been to many of these Brain Capital events, and they're all exciting. They're exciting for a lot of reasons. One is you get to meet amazing people, and everybody's been telling me even today, you know, everybody they meet is high quality, serious, comes from different perspectives, and that's, you know, that alone makes it worth showing up and getting to know more people and expanding your network. And then to realize that this really is a movement and to begin to understand more about the movement and from many different directions. But one of the things about Brain Capital, it's really a large construct. It's a big framework that embodies a lot. And I think at previous Brain Capital events, it's always you walk away and go, this is great, now what do I do? And so one of our objectives today was to really show you what you can do. And in my particular case, I'm actioning it through a venture capital portfolio. And honestly, we actually didn't start this whole effort. My venture partner, Eric Arnson, and I, we didn't start it with the intention of actually starting a venture fund. It started with one investment and two and three and four, and before we knew it, we had a fund. And so we thought, well, let's launch it. And that's what we've done. And the thing that's been unique about Blue Ash that's different from, I think, any other venture firm that I know of is while we look for investments that individually will make great companies, we also look for companies that have tremendous synergy between them. And because our focus is relatively narrow, which is around human flourishing, we're able to accomplish that. And literally every one of our portfolio companies has opportunity where it's giving and receiving value to the others. So we've created this amazing network that's really been growing by itself. And that's been gratifying to see where each company is finding more value than even we imagined when we made the investment. So we have a couple of investment theses, but the beginning of this is that we are in this incredible moment of neuroscience. I have a background in neuroscience. I won't get into all that, but we are at this golden age of neuroscience where we still have a lot to learn about the brain, but we now understand so much. I think just even in the last 5 years, we've learned a tremendous amount through the incredible research that's happening, mostly through illnesses, through the degenerative side of the brain, but so much of the same technology can be used for human flourishing, and that's when I really got interested. I do a lot of work across the spectrum. I sit on the California Mental Health Commission, so I think about this from a mental health perspective, but I'm also very involved in education, and you'll see today we have a company that's in education, and then we have a very workforce-focused effort that's going on in our portfolio as well. But in addition to this unique moment around neuroscience, we are now at a moment where we can quantify human behavior, and that to me is you'll see that's core with everything that we do. And that ability to quantify human behavior, I think, changes everything, because, you know, we all believe this stuff because we're here and all the things we do. But to get the hardcore people, to get the business people, to get the skeptics out there to the table, we need to quantify what we're doing so that they understand it, so they can believe it, and they can calculate ROIs. That's just the reality of the world. And so that's what we're doing. That's what we've gone about doing. And the way we've done that is Blue Ash has invested in a partnership with a company called Shape that you'll hear about in a minute. And we have created this brain health matrix that the objective of it is not just to measure, but it's to measure with action. And so you're going to learn a lot more about it. But I wanted to get to the point where we can actually do something about this brain capital movement every day. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over. I'll make comments along the way. But I want to. The other thing I want to say is that we have also invested in a foundation. We have a foundation called the Spark Foundation. It's at Penn State University. You're going to hear about that, but our objective as a social impact venture fund is both to have great companies that are profitable and do well, but also companies that are giving back for social good. And the objective there is to bring our data to Penn State that has this incredible data enclave in their Prevention Research Center that Dr. Meg Small will talk talk about, and that becomes available for all of us to tap into and for researchers to research. And we've had meetings before this conference with the other organizations that have various brain health measurement systems, and we've all agreed that what we all do is different and it's additive, and we're going to come together in the spirit that this conference comes together, in which we're all working for the common good of all. So that's another aspect of the Blue Ash Venture portfolio, which makes us a little bit unusual. So with that, we met Ali Khan, who started SHAPE, a company in the UK that has this extraordinary ability to develop measurement technology that he will describe. And I guess I just want to say with Ali, Ali's amazing. He's connected globally. He's taken his measurement capability, which comes from a background in other health in blood, and have brought it to the brain. And so he has a lot of efficacy with what he does. He thinks also about actionability. We have this crazy idea now that's also shared with other people, that we not only can measure brain and human behavior and motivation, but we can actually quantify it to the point where we can quantify it financially and even put it on the balance sheet of a company. And when we can get to that point, we have reached the point where everybody is going to get on board and believe in brain capital. So that should be our individual and our collective objective. So with that, we've got the brain health matrix that we are literally unveiling today. Ali Khan.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm a walker. I like to walk around. So are you guys okay? I won't block your view, right? Apparently this is the worst slot because everybody goes to sleep, right? So I need some encouragement. It's my first time in the US after 7 years. Flying around with that guy over there, Chris. Chris and I, every 2-3 weeks, we had the pleasure of being in the States, and honestly, it's such a pleasure to be back over here. I'm going to try to do 3 things as quickly as I possibly can. Hopefully, my sound check. Hello.
Can everybody hear?
And three things. Number one is give you a little bit of a quick background visually, because Kelly, I convinced Kelly that I need slides. One slide is worth 1,000 words. Then we've got a couple of thousand words in just a few slides, right? So we're going to do that. Secondly, what I want to do is frame up the models, right? The models are incredible. Everybody's obsessed with data, which is great, but the models help us transform data into something meaningful. And the third thing, we're going to try to open the door to everybody here to get involved with what does brain health mean for you? Because everybody's got a slightly different perspective. So, Steve said it's called, Steve, why is it called The Matrix?
Because of the movie. The greatest movie of all time.
And who's Lawrence Fishburne in it?
What was that? I missed that.
Who's Lawrence Fishburne? Who's Morpheus?
Well, he's God, isn't he? I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, so the Matrix, as you'll start to understand, is an entirely big concept. It's about taking the disparate pieces and bringing them together. My journey here is quite littered and colorful. I sometimes think I have no God-given right to be here doing what I'm doing and telling people on stage a lot of the things you're about to hear. But it's through a forced function of a passion to try to figure things out. And I think that's what we are here. We're good people doing great things, finding each other. A couple of years ago, whilst working in one of the largest insurance companies on the planet, what I learned was, if you take all the niceties away, what an insurance company is helping employers of good people do is fundamentally get people to come to work and perform. So I had an honest conversation with them. I said, why are you investing into well-being? Why are you investing into employee benefits? And the answer kept on coming back to the same thing: productivity. We want people to be as productive as they can, to turn up to work, do their very best, and go home happy so they can do it again. And so we asked ourselves this profound question, can we actually even measure human productivity? Because nobody had really brought that together. There were disparate pieces, but it hadn't come together. So we asked this question, what are the factors that impact people the most at work? And again, we found that a number of people had come at it from a physical and mental health perspective. They looked at it from the perspective of the environmental perspective, facilities management, and so forth. But who had brought all of this together? And we couldn't find a single organization or body doing all of that in an expansive way. Reductive, yes, but not an expansive. So we went out, and I thought it would take 2 years. It took 4 years to figure this out, and a lot of time and money. And we came across about 4,000 factors. We then force ranked them using statistical methods that are well versed amongst the communities. And we managed to put these into an understandable format for everybody. This is what we call the 12 explorers or dimensions of fundamentally human productivity. If you want your people to be doing the very, very best that they can at work, they fundamentally need the right conditions and the right behaviors. If we go around the clock, their commitment to the company. They want to engage their employees. They also want a great relationship with other people around them, their co-workers. Sometimes you might hear of this as being team dynamic as well. They want a good relationship with their manager. And it's specifically the manager's style that matters the most, we found again and again. We wanted to be able to measure corporate culture, put a number on it. And then McKinsey gave us a fantastic lift up in terms of what are the essentials of every business everywhere in every organization on the planet. There are some fundamentals we all need to borrow. And then we have the physical and the soft work environment. So this is your IT systems, all the way through to your ergonomics. If your asses are hurting after a while, guys, you're very welcome to get up and walk around, because I realize it's plastic, right? And then as we finish a little bit about you personally, it's about your life outside of work. People do not wipe their feet before they come to work and forget about everything at home. The argument I had this morning with my wife is going to carry through with me the rest of the day. Those pressure points I have continue with me for a lot longer. We wanted to measure that. And then, of course, the famous psychological health, the physical health factors, and am I satisfied with my job? Each of these have a variable number of factors packed into that, and we are now able to measure that. Again, not using pseudoscience, not making stuff that we made up. This is very well-established statistical methodologies that we can pick up anywhere. And if you've got statisticians in the group, look up things like factor analysis or latent variable analysis or alpha scoring. You will know that these are very standard ways of doing things. Unfortunately, the world out there tells you as an employer, yeah, we got it all covered, we do everything. But they don't. They really only do part of the picture, is what we found. And if you really look under the hood, they're not even doing it that well. That's the honest truth, and we know it. So we were brave enough to stand up and say, let's try and have a go at quantifying and turning this into a really, really helpful platform. So whilst we were on this journey, what we found that you can't apparently rock up to organizations and expect them to ask their employees to buy into this idea that we're going to measure your productivity. It scares the crap out of people, right? So we had to rethink this. And in a previous life, just a few years before this, actually, I had the pleasure of measuring the mental health of 16 countries with the world's largest insurer. The OECD is now using that data for public policy development of 7 countries, and again, not by design, just because it happened to be great data that they could rely on. And I came across this concept by a guy called Corey Keyes called flourishing. It was the first time I'd heard of it, and I really liked it. So in that construct, we measured the flourishing of people as opposed to the struggling of people in the conditions and the behaviors. So now we're building a model out of this. And what we found was that when you can flourish measurably with that chair, with the people around you, with the IT systems, with the temperature, it fundamentally enables you to perform. Turns out flourishing in all of those equals performance. And after a lag period, you get productivity. We've been able to measure all of that, put it down to a T per person, per team, per department, per company, any slice you like. But for that to happen, you need a flourishing mindset. Now, this is a work from 6 years ago, by the way, that you're seeing here. That mindset can only succeed not in isolation, but within a system, and that system is the ecosystem that your manager affords you. One asshole manager is going to destroy your chance of succeeding. But what you also need is a policy, a practice, a procedure structure at the macro level as well. All of this has to be brought together, and this is a simplification of that very complex environment within which people work. So we turned all of that into this beautiful looking assessment, and it is totally confidential. One of the interesting things that I personally found a lot of pain point with was, as employees, we go to work, we get coaxed into completing this survey that nobody really wants to do. We get begged and poked and prodded for the best part of a few weeks, only to press submit to this lengthy or short survey to get nothing back. People do not feel satiated. We wanted to turn that round. We wanted to give people a proper answer to that. So we needed to invest massively in confidentiality. And we collect about 150 factors of all of those Explorer data points within about 23 minutes now. And it's super, super predictive. So we turned this into a beautiful set of instant feedback for the individual. A report for the manager, and the executives get a set of results as well about the organization level. Right, so before Kelly tells me that you're selling, Ali, stop it. I just wanted to show you the hard work that we put behind this to really try to make it as engaging as we can for people. Because we need to give them agency, and people will only do that if they feel that they're connected with that data. It's their story. I like to think of it as their own personal work wiki. So if we take it a step further, we now connect that data through to a multitude of incredible stories. Take this last one. In Australia, it is now law that if you've got a certain number of employees, 25 or more, you are regulated to measure and report your psychosocial risk at work. Takes those 150 data points, and we were able to go through about 6 months worth of study, and we worked out how to connect it into a 25-page report that you can rock up now to the regulator and say, we don't just meet the standard, we beat it. And it doesn't say anywhere that you need to be the best in the world at psychosocial. It just says you need to measure and report it. Only then can you start your journey. A little bit further back, you'll see my friend Linda from the Well Building Group. I think this might be a well building, actually. It's beautiful. But this is a stamp for your organization investing in the environment. It is an incredibly prestigious stamp. And we're privileged that we can connect that data through to that standard as well. If you look a little bit further back, just up there, you can see the belonging report. It used to be called the DEI report up until a while ago. But it genuinely, we correlated it to literature-backed, evidence-based view of what makes people feel belonging at work. And if you go just a little bit further back, you can actually see the corporate culture report as well. So we have put numbers, and you can see numbers everywhere. Turns out people love everything in a round circle. They think that's an index. So we did that too. So now moving into the last few minutes, I just want to now connect the dots between all of that work there so you can start to see, and why Steve, when we found each other actually thanks to Marie, And Steve said, can you actually connect to a story about brain health? And so we're always looking for a start point. And this, from our friends here, who are our hosts, I really like this because it really shows that business is at the heart of the community. It's important not just for the workforce, but for the consumer downstream as well. If we can get one employee stood up and we can really help them reach their cognitive capacity to peak, we can help them perform. We can actually get them on the way as a macro, and when it scales, to become the best in their own brain health. So what we don't do at Shape is we don't start with our own ideas. We always go to the literature first. And if somebody has done the hard work of figuring things out, we will make that our start point. And we're proud to do that because it turns out the work that George and the rest of the team have been doing here produced this fantastic framework. So let me break this down for you real quick, because some of you have seen it in the booklet as well. Look at the left-hand side. We call this the 9-lever model because there are fundamentally 9 levers at the macro level. Our phase 1 project is, can we measure all of those and the factors that sit behind that? So we actually took this and expanded it massively over the course of the last few weeks. Take stress. Stress is not alone without anxiety and depression. So we needed to understand the role of anxiety and depression, and anxiety is about 80 times more toxic than stress in terms of impact at the score level. So we've got that, and we've got these moderating factors in the middle: mental health, workplace performance, and neurological health. We have started the approach on neurological health, so this is literally blood level thinking, analysis of can we get a correlation between those factors on the left and these midpoint moderators. But we have got it in spades in mental health. We use the depression, anxiety, stress scale. We didn't make it up. It's been used millions of times in Harris's hometown, right? And workplace performance, we know that in spades as well, because you've just seen what we've done. So we had that as a start point. But the hardest thing is, can we get the outputs? Because this is what really brain health is about. And so if you look at the top there, are organizations enabling themselves through brain health, investing in all these things on the left and these moderating factors, to keep their talent, not to lose them? Are they attracting talent in the first place? What about increased productivity? So we've got a metric for that. I'll just jump one for a second to reduced healthcare costs. We were speaking to, in a conversation yesterday, and hundreds of millions is being spent on workers' comp. Hundreds of millions. It's costing real dollars. Can we actually take all of that just from those factors and produce that highest quality output that we need, that is government quality? It turns out we can, because we've got it. I'll show you. The two things that we're also working on is adaptability and cognitive capacity to learn. And the last one there is increased innovation and creativity. Are we enabling people to be more creative? It turns out we can also measure that as well. It's not easy, but we're getting there. So this is what we can do. We're announcing it today, we're revealing it today, but we will have the ability to onboard and assess organizations in a very streamlined fashion on June the 10th. We will provide a personal report individually to every single employee. And then we will provide an organizational report. This is not perfect, guys, by any measure, but it's a big leap forward. It's an attempt to try to help everybody galvanize and get support together. So you're all very welcome to come and please ask questions during this session to dig deeper into this, and also connect it, as you're going to hear, into my colleagues here. This is what it looks like. This is literally what it looks like. I just want to tell you a little 30-second story that I was reading up on the Business Collaborative website, and it said, Crystal, it was actually Shell. It said Shell opted, and Harris wrote this article, opted not to call it brain health to their employees. My team came back and they said, we don't think we should call it brain health to the employees. And I said to them, no, I think we should. We won't get it into the psychology of the public and employees and make it notorious for what it's going to be good at doing unless we can actually introduce the words. I stayed up all night to write just those handful of words up there. Here we look at what drives brain health, how your mind learns, adapts, and recharges each day. It took me a long time to get those words right. I hope it resonates and does justice to the power of what we all think brain health can mean. And then we measure it for those 9 levers. And this is a personal, confidential, your own. Nobody can take that unless you share it with them. And then we go to the org level. Told you people like circles. Last 1 or 2 things. We, in Shape, worked 2.5 years on an algorithm linked up into government quality data that measures the time impact of not having the best possible brain health score. And we can convert that through the wage tranche data into something meaningful. So these trillions and trillions we keep on hearing about, we're now speaking to organizations already and helping them having the heartbreak and understanding that your business is losing about $35 to $40 million a year. It's a lot of money. And then we go to each one of those 9 levers and we break it down one by one. It's no longer a mystery. It's something that you can actually look at, and this is statistically correlated to the 9 levers. That's me. I hope that gives everybody a little bit of an understanding of what we've tried to do in the last couple of weeks at breakneck speed. We've got more to do, and we'll continue to try and work hard as we can for that. Yep.
Thank you, Ali. So this is all about action. If you have an organization with 50 or more people, you want to be a founding member of this initiative, then please talk to us. We've got a table inside with material, and we would love to engage more in the public. We want everybody to get engaged in whatever way that you can with the Brain Health Matrix. I'm excited about this as a business guy. What I know is the biggest secret is that CEOs are terrified because everybody thinks they're all powerful, and the reality is they have no idea what their people do. And this would be the first opportunity for them to begin to understand, not just at an individual level, but with team innovation and division innovation, all the way up to their executives, they'll be able to better understand where their organization's working and where it's not, and how to begin to actually do something about it. So I think this begins a revolution in business performance, and business health as we know it today. Okay, from here on out now, we're going to go quickly through a series of companies that are actioning human flourishing and the brain health matrix from different perspectives. The first person is Eric Zimmerman. He's with Credible Mind, and it's appropriate that he's our first company because it was our first investment in this space, and they're growing like a weed, and let's hear about it. Eric?
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everybody. So here's a little bit of a puzzle. What do you do with a clicker when you have one slide? Anybody? Anybody?
You put it
I think
down.
you use it as a prop. It reduces my anxiety to have something in my hand. My name is Eric Zimmerman. The letters after my name didn't say PhD or MD. They said MPH because I became acutely interested in public health coming out of an undergraduate degree in ecology, behavior, and evolution. All the other students were pre-med, I wasn't. I wanted to work at system level. And then I realized something I learned from the nuns in the Catholic hospitals, no margin, no mission. So the business thing became important. I got an MBA. Those are the letters. But really, they describe my purpose. And my personal purpose is really to break down barriers to broader well-being. And these days, I'm spending more time with mental health and well-being. I'm excited to join the brain health community. I think we are a community. I'm thankful to Ali because he did 3 things for us. He talked about measurements, but more importantly, models. And he introduced methods, right? Because it's one thing to talk. I wanted to do. That's why I didn't go get my PhD. Both my parents, by the way, are PhDs. My father is an experimental psychologist who suffered from bipolar disorder, in fact, untreated bipolar, because he thought his creativity was great when he was in his upcycle. Anybody here, if you wish to disclose, have a family member that has struggled with mental health? It's all of us, folks. It really is. My mother's also a PhD, and she is brilliant, wonderful, practiced as a clinician through her mid to late 80s. She's now going on 89, and she has cognitive decline. And what do you do with that? It was said earlier today, caregiver issues, that is part of brain health, folks. We all are or will be caregivers. Really important. So what's Credible Mind? There are two parts to our name. The credible part carries a lot of weight, because out there in the world of mental health upstream, meaning the things we can do to flourish before we spin out, end up in a clinical setting, there's a lot of stuff. What is credible? The founding story of Credible Mind is let's sort through all of that using AI and machine learning to bring the best forward, but most importantly, leave the choice in the hands of the individual. It was said earlier today by Harris and Lawrence, there's no one right way to flourish, to have positive mental health. We all find it in our own way, and the basic thesis of Credible Mind is put people in a position to succeed. We fast forward, Steve mentioned rapid growth. This is a company that spent years getting ready. We now reach close to 50 million Americans through their communities, through their health insurers, through their employers, because it really does matter to give the people the start here. You go home, you get the box with the new appliance, you open it up, it says, start here, right? Where's the start here on brain health and on mental health? We built Credible Mind to create the start here. It's a platform. It's a repository of over 40,000 evidence-informed resources. Notice I said evidence-informed, because there are different levels of evidence, and we let people decide. I may be headed to the doctor to get a Lexapro prescription. I might hang back and try some things on my own, perhaps mindfulness, perhaps getting out in nature and experiencing awe. There isn't one right way. We want to help empower people, that's an important word, empower people to find their path forward. And that's essentially what we do. That's the metaphor, that's the path here. And lighting the way is also an important metaphor for this company, because there's a lot of darkness out there, folks. We feel it, right? So how do we light that? How do we show the path forward? And sometimes it is to clinical care. In the employer setting, we're looking to create the right kinds of leaders so that they set the stage, because it all isn't on the individual, right? To take care of my health behaviors. We have to put people in a position to succeed, which also means putting them in positions where leaders know how to create that environment. You're gonna hear a lot more about that from my colleagues at Atheon and elsewhere. How do we create that environment? We're really excited to be here. I feel like a little bit of a newbie. I've been at this for a long time at the intersection of health, human performance, and in particular mental health. But the brain health container, if you will, is a really important new way to connect the mission to the margin so that it's relevant in a business context, and so that we can find our way to the funding to help these thousands of seeds we're planting grow into a much better society for all of us. So thank you. If you want to learn more about Credible Mind, there's information in there. Come talk to me. What we have could be a good starting place in any kind of organization wishing to break down the barriers to better mental health. Steve, that's my intro.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. And I just found out today, Eric was actually the guy that came up with the name of the company. That's why he was explaining it through the name, which I think is funny. But the thing about Credible Mind from a venture viewpoint is often we meet companies and we spend a lot of time trying to figure out if we want to invest in them or not. When I saw the CEO of Credible Mind, I knew immediately that that was a company that was going to be successful, because I sit on the California Mental Health Commission. I know how broken the system is. I know that there's very little standard of care. There isn't a place to start, and Credible Mind created that. And so I knew immediately it was going to be successful. So thank you for that. Our next speaker is Marie Gill, who's with Atheon. This is our latest investment. And we're always in the business of trying to invest in things that are transformational. And Marie came with her team of people that are all very seasoned HR professionals. And she said, I want to put HR out of business. And I thought, wow, I really love this woman. So let's hear about Atheon.
Okay, hi. I guess we're supposed to be kind of adding some energy here. I know that brain health needs a little blood flowing. So thank you for giving me a chance to stand up here and pace back and forth and add some energy. I always tell people that I hate being before the cocktail hour for speaking, because everyone's like, when do we get out and get drinks? And then following lunch is really tough, because all of a sudden that sugar just starts to wane off. So thank you for being here. Thank you to Steve and thank you to Eric for taking the big leap of trust in investing in me and my team as we bring forward something that I think is very exciting and life-fulfilling for me. So I actually have never been in HR. I was always called into HR, but I was never in HR. So disrupting HR and putting them out is something that is part of what I'm trying to do. We're very, very focused at Atheon on revaluing human potential. We actually want to think about human capital in a different way. And we think, as has been mentioned, that it's very, very possible today, thank you, Ollie, for your work on this, we think it's possible to actually put human beings on the balance sheet. And imagine that, no longer looking at someone as, you're costing me all this money, you're charging me to have you work here. What if now we can celebrate, oh my gosh, if I tweak you just a little bit more, if I give you a little bit more, how much more can we get? How much better can we become? And I think that's really the power of what we're doing here. But we do it through the development of skills. Skills today are something that we throw out very loosely, but we're trying to redefine what it is to have skills and how having skills creates agency and empowerment for people to actually grow and reach that potential that they can get. We look at skills in two different ways. There are core transferable skills. That's my effort of being nerdy and scientific. But core transferable skills are those things that we all have amongst us. We have more or less of them, but they actually help us become better human beings, better team members, better participants, and more productive. We also look at domain skills as the final mile skills. We actually don't look at those or develop for those, because they are those things that make you the lawyer, make you the doctor, make you the engineer, but all these other skills are super important for us. Today, companies spend 3 times more on recruiting new people than actually investing in those that they have in their company. Imagine that, if you stopped that amount of money and put it into the people and building up that asset. And we also, as a society, as companies, we want to reward and reflect on past performance and not future potential. And why, we look at LinkedIn, we looked at the resume. If you apply for a job, you show up and you say, well, these are all the things I used to do and these are all the things I've done. But I want to know, what can you do for me going forward, and how valuable can you be for me as I approach, as the CEO of a company, as anybody trying to lead work forward? How do we even possibly know what's going to happen in the future? How do you prepare for the future? But if you have a robust skill set of people that are malleable and able to pivot and grow with you, you now have a very able-bodied force that can go solve those big unknowns and those big things. And we can diminish the fear of the individual and also for the company going forward. So at Atheon, we really cherish and value the development of skills, core transferable skills. We do it through a social learning environment. So the power of working side by side with others, with cohorts, with team quests and unique ways of learning about the work ahead and how we can be better team members together. Atheon is really proud to be on this stage with all these people and looking at how can we really reimagine the world of work and how do we create a structure, an infrastructure that celebrates flourishing and human potential. So thank you. I look forward to connecting with each of you, and we've got a lot to share with you more, and thank you for this opportunity. So,
Thank you, Marie. I've been in venture capital so long that I used to invest before the internet, if you can imagine that. And I even invested in hardware companies. So one of the things I love is that Atheon is working on a machine. Now, it's not really a machine, but we call it the machine. We call it Atlas. And Atlas, which is going to be available, I think this summer, will actually take your background and convert it into a skills-based view of what you do. And I think between that and what all these other pieces we're quantifying, again, it's going to change talent in an organization and completely change the way we hire people and that we work with people. So a lot more to come from Atheon. Let's see, who's next? I think it's Besh, you're up next. So Besh, in his spare time, likes to climb ice mountains. So we're very worried. We almost didn't find him. We thought he was climbing a mountain for lunch. Besh has a unique distinction that we met him 2 years ago at a Brain Capital conference where he actually won a business plan competition, and so he is our first recipient that has actually successfully emerged. Now, he already had been at the company. He started at, 8 years before that. He's been at this for 10 years, but we invested in this last year, and they're bringing precision psychiatry to practice. So please tell us about that.
Thanks, Steve. Very much a pleasure to be here with everybody. I grew up first in British Columbia, which is north up in Canada. Spent most of my adulthood in Switzerland and now based in Singapore. So I'm very much looking at the US market as an outsider. But one thing I love about the US is this can-do attitude. I mean, I don't know if you guys appreciate it so much, but people in the US are bullish about practically everything as a society. I think it's part delusional and part, actually really wanting to get things done. Delusion can be very, very powerful, actually, and I think it's an important part of our psyche, but it's also a big problem that we have to address. Before I talk a little bit about my company, I want to mention something important about training skills. That interesting statistic that people spend, or companies are spending 3 times as much recruiting as they are in upskilling. There's this interesting story. The CFO who's looking over a budget, and he goes to the CEO and he goes, what if we spend all this money training these people and they leave? And the CEO says, and they leave us. And the CEO says, what happens if we don't train them and they stay? And so I think it's a really, really important point. It's like you have to invest, and it's good to be to have this can-do attitude, to predict that good things will happen in the future, to plan for good things to happen in the future. A lot can come from that sort of positive attitude. Now, Mobio, my company, is really focused in healthcare. We don't do any direct work with employers or even with payers to some extent, really much. We license our software to hospitals. And we've built a platform that allows for 2 things to happen. 2 reasons why I built this company. First is the ability to deliver clinically validated, quality mental health solutions currently just cannot meet the demand. The demand is huge. Looking at 50% of the global population at some point in our lives. And I would argue 100%. Everybody in this room, I think, either has a mental illness or a learning disability or some sort of cognitive decline. If you don't think you have one, either you've not been diagnosed or whatever you have has not been invented yet. I mean, everybody has neurodivergence. That's part of what makes us strong as a society. So the huge, huge issue is scale. We have to develop tools that can function asynchronously. This is absolutely essential. The second thing that we want to do as a company is to reduce subjectivity in mental health care, in brain capital, in this whole field of medicine. Psychiatry is the only domain of medicine that still primarily relies on subjective data. I mean, this is a huge handicap. This is what prevents us from having the kind of progress that you see in surgery or infectious diseases or in cardiology or oncology. I mean, incredible advances in medicine, and yet what we do in neuroscience is not being translated into how we treat mental health because we can't measure it objectively. This is, I think it's bar none the greatest problem in all of brain capital in all of mental health care. And so I'm really happy to be part of this group here because our company has the potential to deliver objective tools into everything that's being done. The strength of the group here, what Ali is doing, our Credible Mind is doing, is taking these measurements and translating them into actions. But the measurements themselves, as they currently stand, still need to be refined. I would argue we want to completely eliminate any questions. There shouldn't be a GAD-7 or a PHQ-9 to quantify things like anxiety and depression. We can do this by looking at brains. We can do this by measuring how brains are actually doing, how people actually feel in an objective way. In psychological scales and other types of questionnaires, they really have three, I would say, strong limitations. You put them into three buckets of limitations. There's a temporal one. Right? These questions always ask people about their past, maybe a little bit in the present, but you cannot deliver them in rapid succession, which means you get data very, very slowly. That's a big problem on its own. There's an ethnological limitation with these scales. So every single scale and set of questions you have, that has to be validated within each cultural context. That takes a huge amount of time and is a massive barrier to scaling, particularly across a multicultural place like the States, but if you want to have a global impact. And the last, of course, is bias. We are not always honest with ourselves or with our psychotherapist or with our bosses or with the survey. And that is a huge issue. I would say the number one issue. And we very often lie to ourselves when things are most important. You ignore this big thing until it becomes a crisis. And so I have a fear that rather than truly delivering the benefits that we want, if we continue to rely on these questions, we just teach people how to answer questions, rather than really getting at maximizing brain capital. And that's our goal here today, after all, isn't it? So the technology that we use is highly scalable. We take biomarkers from the face. The human brain can look at another human's face and get a good idea for how somebody feels. You do this subconsciously. You do this by looking at the types of things in their face that people can't even control volitionally. The human brain isn't focused in on whether or not somebody's smiling. You pick up on micro-expressions around their eyes. And this type of thing we can also do with technology. Build computers that are able to use cameras to measure the face. And we do that with the smartphone. Smartphone camera is sufficient resolution. We collect all these different biomarkers, and now we're training neural networks in order to objectively assess brain states. We have an extremely accurate tool to get psychological stress, which on its own is very, very useful. We can use that already to then predict how people will respond to different forms of therapy. And those predictions are better than what people choose on their own, which is a very high bar. People are actually quite good, as I think Credible Mind is doing, allowing people to choose what is the best therapy for themselves. That's good, but not everybody's good at it. When you can do this objectively through a tool, you level the playing field. Very, very important. And we're very close to getting affect as well. So understanding how pleasant or unpleasant somebody feels. And again, completely objectively. No bias, no cultural differentiations. Just absolutely objective data that we can use to drive our decisions and how we go forward. So that's pretty much it. I'm a neuroscientist, if you can't tell. Started the company when I was a principal investigator at the Zurich Psychiatry Hospital, but I've left academia because the power for how technology is utilized really is in the hands of businessmen and politicians, and I want to be in that driver's seat, along with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Besh. I just want to underscore this because people that have not touched the mental health system don't understand how bad it is. Imagine a world where we do not know what our blood pressure is. Imagine a world where we do not know what our glucose or our A1C measure is. Imagine a world where somebody tells you you've got cancer, but they can't tell you what kind it is, where it is, what the prognosis is, or how to treat it. That's our level of standard today in mental health. And usually it's touched late, and we know that prevention and early intervention is the key to all this. So very excited to really begin to see these objective measurements. Our next speaker is doing this in K-12 education. So this is a great example of the diversity here. You don't hear about this a lot in our Brain Capital conferences normally. We have a company that's bringing technology because we think about this problem across the lifespan, and it has to start early. It has to start in kindergarten and before. And Josh Arnold is, I'm just going to warn you ahead of time, if any of you guys listen to audiobooks, I normally speed mine up, but in Josh's case, you're going to have to slow it down a little. He's the fastest, most energetic speaker I know. Josh, tell us about Impact Your Pathway.
Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon. Thank you. I want to go quickly and just kind of make sure that there's enough time to round everything out. My name is Josh Arnold. I come to this work by way of being a public school system superintendent in California. That's my entire life. I've never had another job before founding Impact Your Pathway than being a teacher, high school principal, district administrator, and then superintendent in a number of school districts in LA and Orange County. I sound like that, and I'm about to sound like that. So real quick, raise of hands. How many of you have been to school? Awesome. I'm talking to you. What we do is we provide school systems, districts, teachers, classrooms, families with quantitative data on their students' soft skill development. The way that we do that is we've developed an open-ended language assessment that takes natural language in any language. We call this home or target language, so either the language of the school or the language of the home, doesn't matter. And then we ask students open-ended self-reflection questions. For example, tell me about the last gift you gave somebody. You can say anything. This is not a self-reported Likert scale survey. You can say anything. When you talk, we map your answer in a multidimensional vector space. We look for things like semantic clustering and theme mapping. We look for voice print data, and we have a machine learning backend that actually evaluates all these. And we take a set of students' data, set of students' responses, student A and student B. We measure the distance between those students' responses, and we give them a scaled score metric. And then because we're inside of the public school system, we have hundreds of categories of data that we can disaggregate this by. So what ends up happening is we provide school districts with the following. Did you know that 8th grade girls from X middle school have the lowest curiosity development of anywhere in your school district? We provide that data. Did you know that 10th grade boys in Mr. So-and-so's math class have the highest purpose development? Let's go find out what Mr. So-and-so is doing. We provide that data. And more than that, we do this in a highly public, highly transparent way. So this data, if you've heard of whole child education in your school systems, what else are we doing other than academics? This data is used by school systems to provide that accountability back up to the state. So in California, we have local control accountability plans. In other states, you have different scorecards that are used, and school districts say, hey, listen, our English scores may have gone down, our math scores are flat, but our grit development has increased 18% year over year, and we provide that feedback back to the school system itself. So in San Diego Unified School District, for example, we are the provider of soft skill data. You're looking at a wellness report card. So every single student in San Diego in grades K through 5, all of their parents at a parent conference, along with getting a verbal report, actually see their students' responses to our assessment questions and the equivalent of a scaled score metric. So we actually, in K5, we do this through a gauge analysis, but there's an actual number behind this driving all of this. And so now parents are able to say, hey, listen, I'm really happy with how my student, how my teacher, how my school is doing in resilience, and I need to focus on empathy. This is a way to give learners feedback. And if you can think about your school experience, the fundamental premise of learning is you need an experience, you need feedback, it needs to be immediate and specific. That's what we do in schools. Happy to talk more with you throughout the conference, and thank you for letting me talk.
Thanks, Josh. Who would have loved to have had a teacher like Josh up there who's so dynamic? So he's just scratched the surface. Impactor does so much more. It's a great example of AI, and every one of these companies has AI involved, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why this is such a unique opportunity. If we couldn't have done this 10 years ago with where we're at with AI and neuroscience and quantification, that's what is really, I think of this as the beginning, just like 1980 was the beginning of biotech. When biotech just started happening, we're at the beginning of a multi-trillion-dollar industry that's going to explode in so many ways. And Impactor is a great example, and I urge you to find Josh and learn more about his company, and for that matter, any of the other companies. So one of the things I mentioned is we are invested in a foundation that's at Penn State University. We have a partnership with Penn State, and the leader of that practice is Dr. Meg Small, who is also very dynamic, and she does a lot of stuff, and she also works in our private companies as well, and she's going to tell you today about what she does and the power of public-private partnerships, which I've learned through my public service is essential. We are not going to solve any of these social problems unless we bring private industry, the public, government to the table, and philanthropy and research organizations. They've all got to be at the table because they all hold an important piece of the solution to all of our societal problems. Meg.
So I'm going to stand up here so you can just kick
Good.
me off, right, when I'm
Good.
off.
Yeah, I'll kick you off.
Yeah, and I'm aware of the time. So I just want to stand up here and say I am so lucky because I get to work with all of these companies. And at the end of my talk, you'll get to see that you also get to work with all of these companies through this public-private partnership. So if you can't tell, the through line that we all share is a real commitment to three things: rigor, relevance, in real time. And the public-private partnership that we think is needed here can accelerate brain health innovation because we're not in a trade-off situation anymore. We used to be in a trade-off. You had to pick two of those three, et cetera. But now with this partnership, we can optimize across all three of those. So it's not just about measuring things. We do that with high levels of rigor. You can see sort of the rigor that's embedded in all of these companies. They make it personable, they make it customizable, and most importantly, they make it actionable at an individual level, at a team or a unit or group level, at a company level. Because we know, as Ali kicked us off, it's not just flourishing at an individual level, it's the relationships we have at work, it's the culture of our organizations that also impact our daily brain health. And our daily brain health impacts those around us and our company culture. So again, I think just to sort of say that we all share that, and we're all doing it in slightly different ways, but the public-private partnership allows us to be better together. So the first question I'm going to answer is, why do we need a public-private partnership? Because we're better together. If you had access to all of these data in an enclave, which I'm going to share just a little bit about that we have at Penn State, we can learn so much more together, we can measure it in multiple ways together, and we can action it collectively together really, really quickly, much faster than academia could do in the old model, which is very linear and slow. The second question, how are Penn State and the Spark Foundation uniquely positioned to help meet this need of better, faster together? And third, most importantly, what is the value of this public-private partnership to the stakeholders in this room? So I'm going to try to answer all three of those very quickly so we can open it up to questions. I'll be available at the table to provide more detail on any of those as well. Why do we need this? I said we're better together. Right now, as you can see through all the talks today, we really are at this moment of opportunity with all the scientific breakthroughs in brain health to leverage those breakthroughs and to take advantage of all the computational power we now have. We really need to increase our agility and our efficiency. We need to go faster with less friction to capitalize on this moment to impact public health. That's where I come from. I come from a background in public health. I also work for a large land-grant university. Our mission is to advance societal well-being. We have that as part of our land-grant mission. Again, another reason for a public-private partnership. Large research universities, and I'll speak specifically for my own, but I think we all face these challenges and have this expertise. We're really good at discovery and invention, a little less good at innovation, and we all face a lot of challenges in commercializing, scaling into like highly successful commercial ventures and or broadly adopted public policies. That's where a partnership with private sector, with workplaces, with these companies can really help us. Again, another reason why we need a public-private partnership. Just quickly, a little bit about Penn State. Happy to answer a lot more about this. Again, large land-grant university. Last year, and we're very open about this, by the way, this has been published, we did $1.33 billion in sponsored research. We commercialized less than 1% of that over the last 5 years. We're particularly bad at this, but a lot of large R1 universities aren't great. I mean, Michigan leads the Big Ten, and you guys are still under like 20%. Yeah, so it's not like we're doing a really great job of commercializing on our own. As a result, our president, who's new, relatively new, 3 years, has said, we're shaking things up. This is not acceptable. We are not going to reach the societal benefit. There's too much science sitting on the sideline with that percentage of a commercialization rate. So she's allowing us and has invested in infrastructures that we're going to share broadly with you all, particularly around data sharing, linking, and utilizing data in lots of different formats, and a research translation platform where we can help conduct cost-benefit analyses. We can connect with our policymakers to put data in their hands for decision-making in real time. So we really want to transform the use of research and evidence in decision-making in both the public sector and the private sector, because you know, if many of you are working in the private sector and companies, they want to know what's the ROI. How is a dollar invested in this prevention effort in brain health going to yield benefits probably quarterly, right? We've got to do it in real time. It's got to be highly impactful and relevant. We think we can do that better in a partnership. A little bit about the Spark Foundation. It is a catalytic organization. So as we're trying to churn these ocean liners of large organizations, we need a catalytic organization that allows us to do things in really different ways and change our mindset. So for instance, we've negotiated with the Spark Foundation clean IP agreements where we've assigned IP to the foundation so that they can go out and partner with you all in a really frictionless way. We've created joint ventures so that, again, we can do things, spin things up, test them in real time really, really quickly, and not, again, have this sort of linear translation, commercialization process. The other thing that the Spark Foundation does, and this is where I think it's really useful for you all, is that it bridges access to all these amazing companies. So with accessing through the Spark Foundation, you can work with all of these companies and connect directly into Penn State's Data Enclave, this repository of data where we can combine all of this data, leverage it, combine your data into it, as well with just a single point of entry. So we're trying to reduce those friction points. Finally, I'm going to conclude here because I think I'm at time.
You're good.
Yeah. We want to make sure that immediately you have results, right? Your research and your products, you can expand your R&D capabilities flexibly by partnering with us, by partnering with the Spark Foundation. So you don't have to maybe build up R&D capabilities, you can leverage ours through the infrastructure, through the data accelerator, the research translation platform, and obviously our network of researchers and subject matter experts. And you can contribute to the development of new knowledge. So with a data use agreement, again, a frictionless entry point through the Spark Foundation, you can add your data to the mix of this data and get new insights, et cetera, and increase your own value for your own companies and your organizations, and maybe even your own research. So I'm going to stop there because I think we're at time. I can take questions, again, provide a lot more detail about any of those assets that I mentioned either on stage or at our table. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Meg.
Yep.
Perfect. So I get on calls with Meg, these epic calls, and half the time she's jogging across campus and I'm sitting in my chair trying to catch my breath just talking to her. And I frustrate her. I'm like, Meg, why doesn't it work this way and that way and this way? And at one point she just stopped me and she said, Steve, you don't understand. We suck at being human. So that's the punchline of many of my presentations. We actually aren't good at a lot of this stuff, and that's why the quantification is so important. I have one of my best friends who's brilliant about other people, but he could never figure out his own life. And so quantification is important. And I'll just tie this up in the end, telling you that we actually have an effort in which we're looking at applying all of this into the public sector in order to make government work better. And that has a couple of implications. One is that we think that we can take what we're talking about here for companies, and we can actually create flourishing communities, and we can certify them as flourishing communities, and then we can use this quantification to actually tie it to social impact bond funds so we can create capital that's not available in what's really an area of scarcity in behavioral health and brain health. So I think that's big, and if you know anything about the financing side, you know that a lot of our research gets left on the cutting room floor because the venture capital objectives that come from the institutions are generally 20% hurdle rates. And if we can drop that down to 5%, I estimate we could expand the innovation by an order of magnitude and still have nice returns that drive the capitalistic structure of entrepreneurship. So I think that, and I think the technologies that are represented on this stage will actually allow us to intake people's opinions in a whole different way that could fundamentally change democracy. So my message to you today is these are examples of applications of what you all are working on. Every one of these people could get up and talk for an hour, so they've just barely scratched the surface. I encourage you to talk to them. I encourage all of us to continue to work together, as I know we are, in these public-private partnerships for the social good of all, because we're on the beginning of an extraordinary movement here that Harris Air created. So thank you very much, and thank you for the panelists. And sign up for the Brain Health Matrix, please.